in the middle of somewhere. Uh,
Hmm.
anyway, hi, Amin. Welcome to Venture with Grace.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Okay, so to start the show, I would love for the audience to learn more about you. So you grew up in an immigrant family in Bellevue, and um, you work like you basically outwork all your friends, and then you have great GPA. You volunteer. Let's kind of like go back to what were some, and then later on you work at before you start your own company. Obviously, you work at Apple, and then you pitch like a really important product and feature to the CTO and the VP team there. Why don't we start with like what were some like early lessons in life that you kind of took away to your professional career, and then what are some kind of like career lessons that you've learned that while you were working at Apple to that translate into your entrepreneurial leadership?
Hmm. So, early lessons, there's a good amount of them, but I think for me, the habit that I developed when I was studying, where I never ever believed I was the smartest in the class. There was always those kids or students who would solve things like 10 times faster than me. They would understand the lecture immediately when the teacher explains it. And I would always end up being the person who would have to go back, maybe read that chapter 2 to 3 more times, do double the worksheets and problems so I can go back and perform well. And yes, I was performing at that 4.0 level, but I felt like I had to do so much effort. And from that, I learned discipline, right? No matter what's going on in my life, I have to move it around. If my friends wanted to go out and I didn't feel comfortable to ace my exam, I'm going back to study. And that discipline mentality, honestly, it would be probably the number one characteristic I have that's helped me kind of really make it through corporate world, startup world, and everything I've been able to do, where you just never give up and you keep putting in those hours until you get where you want to be. No, there's no question asked. You just keep doing it, keep working, keep studying till you get there. And so that's the number one, I would say, thing that I picked up in my childhood. And then at Apple, there were a lot of things we learned there. Working obviously in a corporate world is very different than big Apple versus a startup. And there's a lot of things we learned. For example, managing people, working with a team. But I think the most important thing that I picked up there was attention to detail. Apple is everybody knows Apple and design, beautiful software, beautiful hardware. And just to get any feature or product pushed out, design had to look at it and it had to be perfect. If the customer can't figure it out, it's our fault. It's not their fault. How do we make things as easy as possible? How can we take something that people would think is 2, 3, 4 steps and turn it into one? And when we started to apply those principles to our app, that's where we started to see retention go up, stickiness, and the virality we received. And so those are probably the two things I'm going to choose for childhood and then working at my Apple job.
For sure. I feel like I really love the attention to detail part because I feel like that's something that Silicon Valley in general is kind of like going against, like not going against, but like I feel like a lot of people are prioritizing like ship fast instead of like making a really perfect product in the first
Mhm.
try. Apple obviously did such an amazing job on like launching anything and everything in the traditional fashion, like everything is like working perfectly at all time. um, I wonder, I feel like building a startup is kind of like the opposite of that. You have to like keep launching and like make sure every version is kind of like um, you just basically like move fast and adapt fast. I want to also quickly saying hi to that LinkedIn. Hi, LinkedIn user. So basically, he is saying hi to you. So I want to maybe start with building a product because obviously you have built a successful ad tech product and like also it's a marketplace. I was listening to the network effect from the CEO of Tinder. So he was talking about like he prioritized like um saturating a specific small network first before moving forward to expand into like let's call it like Kim Kardashian doing like a billboard or something. What's your thought process on like creating a product and with network effect since your product is kind of a really amazing network for tutors to like teach students? Maybe we start with like what your product is and then we talk about like how you build a successful product and go to market.
Yeah. So our product is essentially an Uber for getting homework help. at
Mhm.
any time in the day, 3 p.m., 3 a.m. You can request and an assignment, math, science, English, and we'll connect you to a tutor in real time. On the app, you can text them, call them, send files, video chat, do group chats. It's like a social learning environment for college and high school students. Network effects is, of course, essential for a marketplace like us. And the funny thing is, we kind of approached the order that you described in a very different order because we actually started gaining traction on social media. And when you gain traction on social media, usually you're going viral all over the world. And so you're not really doing what the typical traditional network effects where you're starting somewhere and expanding from there and having the people, share it and building those effects. It's more like, okay, well, we're reaching people all over the world. They're coming in. How do we actually retain them? And as we started to do that, we were able to get data incredibly fast because on social media, when something goes viral, millions of people are seeing it. And so we got a surge of users. And as they came to the app, we started to look at the data and figure out what's going right, what's going wrong, what's causing people to stick, what's causing people to drop off. And through that, we started to optimize our product experiences and features to now start focusing on those network effects, the word of mouth, and then having that be the second driver to growth. So initially, what's driving us was the social media, and that was getting us those downloads. But then when people start using the app and become happy customers, how do we build virality from there? How do we get them to share? How do we get them to actually stake on? And so as we got better with the product and as we started to improve it by looking at that data, we started to see a distribution change. Initially, all of our paying customers were coming straight from social. Now, actually, what's most predominant is most of the paying users are coming from a share by an existing customer, but the downloads are coming from social media. And so that shift is directly correlated to our understanding of the product and improving and building, features that facilitate network effects. But we didn't really go about it the traditional way because, and I don't know if I shared this earlier, but we have like 2.5 million followers, like 1.5 billion views on social media. We're the second most followed education company in the world, right behind
Mhm.
Duolingo. And so it's a very non-traditional route. And we just honestly chased what was working for us. And so we weren't going to change our marketing strategy to follow the traditional way. We were going to just chase and follow where the customers were coming from, which was social media at that point.
Totally. I wonder, so when you first created the first video, like what was it? And then how did that thing kind of shape your trajectory of product design as well as building the network?
Yeah. So our first video, honestly, we were just playing around. We were throwing out different videos. We were looking at the trends. Me and my co-founder, who also happens to be my brother, Danny Shaykho, we were, just sitting, exploring the For You page on TikTok back in 2020. There was a huge stigma
Mhm.
behind it. They're like, oh, an education app on TikTok where there's kids. That's so unprofessional of you. And people made fun of it. And obviously, us being Gen Z, we knew that this is the future. And we tried a few different videos, and quickly we realized that a niche of teaching people bite-sized information in 5 to 10 seconds wasn't really a thing. Kids, Gen Z, don't want to sit and watch like a 30-minute video explaining how to use their iPhone, but every single Gen Z had a phone. And if we taught them these cool features in 5 to 10 seconds, perfect for their attention span, then those could go viral. And so that turned into this like tips, life hacks, tech hacks genre, which then we were able to cross-pollinate into school hacks, life tips for education. And that's where we found a perfect integration of our product because we could actually turn our product into a perfect school life hack to get a 4.0. And so I would say within like honestly a month of trying making content, we had one video where I think what we did was we did a very clickbaity intro where we bit into like an onion with Chick-fil-A sauce to hook you.
Mhm.
And then we showed you 3 different apps that help you get a 4.0, and we snuck ours in the middle. I think that got like 3 million views or something and like tens of thousands of downloads and put us number 7 on the App Store charts. And then we were like, oh God, like that just blew up. Let's do another one. Let's do another one. And we kept doing it back and forth. And as we were ranking up in the charts, we had investors coming in and like a bunch of like customers coming in. And that spiraled like this ongoing cycle where now we're
Mhm.
pumping up 5 videos a day and we just never looked back. We just kept pumping them and pumping them.
I want to ask you, like, okay, so here's like two school of thoughts. Like, I have friends who have millions of views and like, I mean, billions of views, like millions of followers. They are saying that like, you need to pump out content like 20 times a day. So like, it's a volume game. On the other hand, there's a group of people saying you should be doing like one video, but making sure video even just for a week, but it's like amazing. Which one do you think you should focus on and why?
In the world of short form content that every single platform is building upon, even YouTube, the notorious long form content, where you're going to have the most success is pumping up a lot of less quality videos,
Mhm.
but a lot, because we live in a world right now where the consumers are looking for value and entertainment or whatever the value proposition is of that video. And honestly, they could care less about your crazy edits. That's just the truth. And I'm seeing all the successful brands, including ourselves, do the same thing, right?
Mm,
And sure, like both strategies work. I mean, I'm not saying this one is better than the other, but what I'm trying to tell you is, as you want to be with the wave, right? And all these social media platforms are optimizing for short form. And those, homemade style content is what's popping off right now. So don't go against the grain, go with it and start building that content. Obviously, if your team is massive, you can do both. But if you have to start somewhere, do 3, 4, 5 videos a day, at least once a day, and be consistent and keep pushing that until you start seeing some sort of success.
for sure. Does this work? Like, do you feel like this works for like podcasts? Because I kind of feel like for the podcast clips, they're like everywhere, but I have got that vibes of like you should kind of clip some sort of like really interesting animated or like whatever, like focus on like the first 5 seconds, like making animation, making whatever. But I kind of feel like on the other hand, um, just doing like the random clips, like you could do a lot more. And just by being, let's say, putting in like 10 selections, so the algorithm can select from one of your 10 videos, it maybe goes better because of like, at least it's like giving you're putting more things into the hat. So like when they draw, it's more likely to draw yours. But for to like make even just like the first 5 seconds, it really requires a lot of effort on like thinking, scripting, like filming and launching. So how do you streamline the process into an effective way to do something like video?
Are you talking in general or specifically for podcasts?
Um, both.
So, really quickly on a previous note, in terms of like the perfect video quality that you do one or do multiple, I just to add one more note, it actually depends as well on the type of company you are in the
Mhm.
industry. I was speaking more in general. Like in some cases, some type of content does deserve that high
Mhm.
production. And so just wanted to make that clear. To answer you, I think to streamline the process, it's going to be very dependent on the type of content you're doing, what type of industry you're on in, etc. Like for me, at least I can speak on what we did for Kadama. It was what took us the most effort and time was coming up with these ideas. What is that bite-sized piece of information that we want to teach you in 5 to 10 seconds? And how do we take that, information that maybe typically would take, 1 or 2 minutes to teach and show it to you in a few seconds? And what we learned was a hybrid of visually showing you the steps while explaining the complicating steps at the same time simultaneously, and skipping some steps in between where people could actually tie them when they're attempting to do it on their own to work the best. And we created that structure, wrote it down on a piece of paper, and made sure that all of our future videos follow that exact structure. So we never had to sit down and figure out how we're going to film this video, how are we going to do that. It was all established. So once we came up with the idea, it was just about executing it. And then at that point, what was taking the most time is finding those ideas. So we would dedicate 2 weeks, 2 days of every single week where we would come with a list of all the ideas. We would pre-record all the scripts for them. And then in one go, we would just shoot all the visuals. And now we had a bunch of that content just sitting there. And then we would just divide it over the course of the week. schedule them using the features that they have. And honestly, it was pretty streamlined. Whereas when we first started, it was every single idea. We went and recorded it and then shot the video. And then we have to repeat, and all that setup in between and all that time wasted in between made it so we weren't efficient. And so just doing something like that made it so we can scale from like 1 or 2 videos a day to like 3, 4, 5 videos a day. And every company will have its own rhythm. It's hard for me to give a generalized answer, but it's very possible. I've seen people do it across so many different type of content and niches. And so if it looks impossible or it seems impossible, it's probably not. It's just about you're gonna have to figure it out. And the more you post content, the more you start noticing those inefficiencies, and then you can start optimizing them.
Totally. I think maybe the harder part was not like I think streamline the process very, very important because after all, like actually from my personal experience, I feel like being a content creator have almost nothing to do with creativity. It's more of like your persistence and like how can you kind of deconstruct something into like a format or a formula and then like apply it every single day. It's like a discipline thing, like what you're really good at. And like I wonder when it comes to developing the first like formula on like things that could actually go viral, obviously studying the existing content from like different niche or like even in a similar niche works, like seeing what works like for other people. But I wonder, like, when you are first publishing a video, sometimes you don't really see the results. Like, a lot of people just gave up. What's I think we talk about this in our like conversation in Seattle. Like, I feel like you gave a really good advice, which is maybe call it like make 20 videos and then see if something would stick. But what does stick means like from a numbers perspective? Let's say if my regular view number is like 700, and then but one day I got like a 10K video. So that is like obviously obvious, but will that 10K video one day become a million if I keep pushing? Or if that's just like a one-time thing and I should try to find a more better format to go after.
Mm-hmm. So jumping from 700 to 10K is a massive jump. That's like over 10x. And that tells me that something in the performance of the video was drastically better. It's rare for especially TikTok, and we'll just speak for TikTok right now, in the modern day for them to just randomly throw in a video. Yes, they give you those mini boosts, but that's a significant boost, and that tells me something did better. So what I would do immediately is export that data and put it in Excel, whatever data visualization tool, and compare it against all your other videos, and you're gonna see something drastic. Me being in the industry, I can tell you that the two biggest factors that cause stuff like that is watch time, or high amount of like shares, for example. And so you literally could probably open up those two videos and look at the watch time graph and see
Mhm.
that maybe one was 30% better. And that tells me that maybe you did a better intro or hook, or the first X seconds up to the point where they dropped off was just significantly better. And so I would take that and actually compare it to your other videos and see what you did differently. Maybe your intro was more exciting. Maybe there was more energy. Maybe the visuals were better. Maybe you had better text. But whatever you did there, figure that out and start applying it to your future videos. And your goal would be to have the rest of your videos start hitting 10K. And then slowly but surely you figure out, okay, well, how do we get people to go from 5 seconds to 6 seconds or 7 seconds, right? And figure out what's working best and apply them. And I also tell this to everybody: don't post one videos and get discouraged, two videos and get discouraged. Every single creator known to mankind flopped their first X videos. There's no single creator that posted 3 videos and went viral. Maybe 3 of them in the population of 100,000 plus creators. But why are you expecting to be the one that breaks that pattern? You're not. And so what I would say is, I believe 7 to 10 videos is a good amount to test the algorithm. I would make every 7 to 10 videos, I would switch up the style. Maybe I would change up the intro. Maybe I'll completely change how I'm even filming the video. But I would give my type of content style at least 7 to 10 attempts before contemplating, should I change it, should I scrap it, etc. And usually after maybe 1 or 2 style changes or editing style changes or even the way you film the video, modifications, you tend to see some success. And if you're still not seeing success, that's when you can consider being like, oh, well, I guess this idea is not going to work, or this niche isn't the best, or the product I'm trying to promote isn't that good. But until you've done at least 3 to 4 iterations of those 7 to 10 sequences, then you should not be stopping, because that's just crazy. Like at this point, it's just common sense that you're going to flop after 2 to 3 videos, because the algorithm doesn't even know your niche. It doesn't even know who's going to watch your content. So the algorithm is experimenting with who to show. And if you stop after one video, there we go. You just ended the experimentation process that the algorithm itself is attempting to do.
For sure. I wanna dive into a little bit of like the nitty-gritty. One thing you mentioned about like it's a data visualization tool, and I'm sorry, I probably will look into how to download data from TikTok. Obviously, I didn't know that there were I mean, I know there's data, but like I didn't know that you can download data, also putting them into like a visualization tool. Can you unpack that a little bit on like what should I be looking at? Is it like when do people drop? Obviously, like drop off time, and then maybe like um I guess like the watch to like impression ratio. What are some other things that you feel like it's matter, but like people probably like ignore or like not sure of?
Well, for the sake of this podcast, let us just focus on watch time. I believe that is the most important metric, watch time / retention. Everything else doesn't really matter, honestly, because if a video is getting 100% watch time, even if it has no likes, no comments, no shares, and those are genuine views, like it's going to go viral. Because at the end of the day, these platforms want to have users consuming content on their platform. And so watch time is the most important metric. I would download that graph and I would look at cohorts, see what percent of people dropped off at the first second, third second, fourth second, how many people watched to the end, what percent maybe watched to the end and then shared the video. But most importantly, why are they stopping at certain points? And based on the platform you're on, you'll get even extra demographic information, like maybe the people of the age of 30 stopped at this time, but people who are younger stopped here. And it just depends. Use whatever data you have and evaluate that. And then once you have that, you go and open up your video and you start watching it. You can come up with your own hypotheses. Maybe that's where you go and look at other videos in a similar niche and see, well, if you're a podcast and you're getting people dropping off at 3 seconds, and another podcast that maybe is getting like 1 million views per video, clearly they're not getting drops at 3 seconds. They're probably having people go a bit further. So why is their 3 seconds better than your 3 seconds? And how can you not copy them, but how can you get inspired, learn the type of tactics that they're applying and apply to yours? And as you're doing that, you're testing out your theories by making variations of your content, which I was telling you about earlier. And then eventually one of these variations has to strike. Again, and if it doesn't strike, that maybe what the actual inherent thing that you're creating content of isn't appealing to the masses. But generally, you should be seeing some sort of success. There's billions of people on social media, and you will find a group that resonates with it.
For sure. I want to double click on like you know, seeing what works and then go after it. So what if your video that pop up is like the kind of video that you may not want to make daily? So just an example, my best performing video, not best, but I guess the second best performing video was actually about Roblox. It's how like AI effect like people building on Roblox. But
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling it's because of it's related to Roblox, which I talk about maybe once a year.
Yeah.
So should I be pursuing this niche and then become a Roblox influencer instead of doing whatever I'm doing? Or what's the thought process behind building a consistent brand, but also like having like I mean building a really big following, but also not like off brand of like whatever you were originally trying to do. Like for you, it could be promote Kadama, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's no correct yes or no answer, because depending on your goals, that could be a genius strategy and it may not be the best strategy. In a world where you're optimizing to just build following and mass viewership, I would chase it. But in a world where you are extremely hyper focused and on a specific type of image or you have a different type of goal, I would avoid it. In a world where you don't want to attain the demographics of Roblox viewership, which I'm going to assume is generally kids, and maybe you're trying to attract adults or people at least who are not kids, I would also avoid it, because once you get stuck with a demographic, it's a bit hard for you to completely change it. What I do is it's in between actually. There tends to be things that I don't really want to be doing on a long-term basis, but they go viral and they get me the same exact demographic as the demographic I'm trying to attain. And so when it's that type of scenario, like an equivalent to your Roblox scenario, I'll pursue it, because sure, maybe I'm not passionate about it, but at that point, it's just a little bit of hard work to gain some more followers and viewership. And then those same people are the same demographic as the other content I'm trying to do. So they just cross pollinate over. So that's the magical, or that's like the ideal scenario. And then in your case, it's a per person basis type scenario. But just me knowing what you're trying to achieve, I would quickly go look at the video, the Roblox video, and just look at the age and the demographic. And if it's not the demographic you want, I would shy away from that. Because once you attain a certain amount of following count of a certain demo, you get it's way harder for you to branch into other niches. But there are correct ways though to change niches and change demographics. There's a whole different conversation for that. So it is possible. But in a quick summary answer, that's what I have to say about that.
For sure. I feel like people who have built like millions of following that's on the next level, like obviously, and then like also you have done it in such a really, really quick like um time period basically. I want to learn more about like what's your philosophy on outsourcing certain things, productizing or like streamlining a certain processes. How do you kind of recreate your own success and like making sure it's like under some sort of like same structure and format that's manageable for you. So I feel like it's really hard to like outsource a certain creative work to a team. So let's call it like editing. So even you have like a 20 bullet points and then you send it to an editor A and send it to editor B, they have like two different completely different things that they could come up with. And then on the other hand, from like scripting part, um, do you brainstorm with people? Do you A/B tests? Like, I feel like there's so much goes into each video that people don't know. I feel like it's just making mini movies on a day-to-day basis. Um, how do you outsource creative stuff in general?
So I'm gonna give the quick answer that everybody, I, you know, I feel like everybody in the bottom of their heart knows this, but they try to shy away from, and it's the honest truth, and it's how I've been. I guess I don't know if I also share this. I think I have like 5, 6, 7 million followers across all the pages I have, and for every single one of those pages, it was the same thing over and over again. But when you start off, you have to do it all, and I mean that. If you want to be a big creator where people know you and recognize your brand, you need to be doing it initially. That's like expecting to build a company, have an IPO, and you're not there for the seed and the Series A stages. Same thing. Even social media has its seeds, Series A, Series B. Maybe it's not raising money, but it's the stages of the company. And how can you expect to build this massive following, but you're outsourcing your 0 to 10,000 followers? You have to be there, define the vision, define the style of editing, have people love you, define the creative vision. And once you actually start seeing momentum, seeing the virality and success, and you have a proven formula, now you can bring people to help you edit, help you write the scripts, maybe even film for you, because then they can follow what works. But if you have random third parties trying to define this vision, what's stopping them from doing it at the end of the day, right? Like somebody else would have already done it. But if you're trying to craft something new, you have to be pioneering it. And once you start seeing that success, now you use outsourcing, not because, you're lazy or because you don't know how to do it. No, it's because you're trying to make your process more efficient to be able to scale faster. Same way, when you start up with a company, a lot of investors are like, bootstrap it. You and your co-founders do it. And once you've seen traction and success, then raise money, then hire. Investors freak out if you're trying to hire when you have nothing, unless maybe it's a healthcare product or something like that, but they'll freak out. And so, same thing with social media. A lot of people look at social media and think it's funny games. They make fun of creators, but these creators are making millions of dollars. They're putting even more effort than an entrepreneur or person in the corporate world, right? And so the people who take it seriously are building a business, and then there are the creators who maybe aren't taking it too seriously, and look where they end up, right? And of course there are anomalies where people go viral and then they get their 15 seconds of fame, and obviously there's corporations that spend a lot of money and you know make it seem, create that illusion that things are going well initially because of all that money spent, but once they stop that spend, you naturally see the organic dissipate. But in a nutshell, you have to be pushing forward until you start seeing that success, and then you can do what you said. And I'm so passionate about this core point because I have thousands of people always DMing me, asking me how do I get started, and I tell them you have to be there in the very beginning, and just like anything else. And that's my advice for anybody listening who's trying to get started.
I love that advice. I feel like that is something that everyone should be hearing, then like want to be hearing. I guess like everyone
Yeah.
wants to like a cheat code for something. Um, I wonder what's a psychological thing that you first identify from you user that like why are they watching it? Obviously, I'm your fan, and like I got attracted to these like free food hacks. Even
Yeah.
I feel like um I'm trying to cut like these sugar intake, but I still want to know how to get a free cookie from Crumbles. Crumble Cookie, if you're listening, please sponsor us. But anyway, so I wonder how do you kind of like understand the logical things behind some of the users? Obviously, like free things, everybody love.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear like there's like a crazy fire truck just passed by. But and then there's like also, food is like a really big factor. But there's so many like free food creators on everywhere. How do you kind of like stand out among like the thousands of people who are like going after the niche?
Well, I think in a nutshell, actually, I believe my other page. I have multiple pages. She's referring to my Amin Shaykho page. I actually think we're the number one most followed food deals page in the world at the very
Mhm.
moment. Other people are maybe food reviews or they're just general deals, but for us, we wanted to build a niche of entertainment and food. So when you come to our page, you're gonna have some laughs, and then you're gonna be eating really good. And the way we approached it was very unique, and I don't want to talk in too much detail on how we did this, but what I'm just going to say in a nutshell, I focused on how do I actually create content that will add value in people's life, whether it's comedy or getting them the food that they want. And how do I deliver that in a way where they're actually going to watch it and engage? And then how do I scale that in a way where there's longevity, where no no matter if this video pops off or this video pops off, it won't just be a one-time thing. It will be something where I can create reoccurring series out of. And when all those three things aligned, I saw the success, and we got to where we are today. But it really boils down to three things when we're speaking in general, when you're trying to build any type of social media presence. Number one is, are you coming into a niche and either A, introducing content that's never been seen, or adding a unique twist that is different enough from what's out there where people would want to subscribe to? Number two, are you actually building stuff that somebody wants to see for whatever reason it is, value, learning, entertainment? And then obviously number three is consistency. Are you just going to keep doing it no matter what happens, or are you going to stop after like 3 videos? And so if you're doing all three and they're legitimately all checked off, there's no reason for you not to be successful.
Do you use iPhone to make your videos, or like do you have like a professional camera and everything?
We have all the tools we need, but actually a lot of the videos you see on our Instagram page are all using an iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, so, okay. So I also want to ask you about like, what's your thought process on building a brand? Obviously, you built like multiple subsector brand in food and like education and like um life hack or like tech hack or the hack sector.
Mhm.
How do you think about monetization and conversion to app download rates, or like what is attracting people who will pay for your services in your business?
So with Kadama, the way we did it was we came in as a creator. So we were not actually focusing on let's maximize for downloads. And off bat by doing that, it made us very authentic because we were like, we're gonna grow as a creator. Let's not worry about downloads right now. And we created what people wanted to see, what people resonated with, what people learned from, what people felt inspired from, and built a loyal following that trusted us. And organically, we had that proven formula of these 10 to 20-second bite-sized information videos, and we were doing these school videos that were teaching you different life hacks, and amongst that, our product legitimately was a life hack to get a 4.0, because where at 3 a.m. can you find a real human to help you out? Sure, you can Google, do all these other tools, but in some cases you need somebody to sit down there with you and help you there and then. And so yes, we had a great marketing platform, but also our product was good. And I believe you need to have a good product and good marketing. One won't let you. Sure, you could have good marketing, send people to a product, even if it's a bad product, but people won't retain. So we had that good product, and then we had a strong marketing. And because people had already trusted us and we built that loyal following, when we showed them our product, the way it was integrated made it seem organic. It didn't even look like it was an ad, because just naturally the way we delivered it made it seem like a life hack and not a
Mhm,
promotional video. And then
mhm.
B, when they actually went and tried it out, they found the app to be useful, and so they retained. And so our core strategy from the very beginning was be authentic and build a niche around teaching people stuff. And by definition, teaching people about an iPhone, teaching people about which vegetable to eat if you're sick, and then teaching somebody how to get a 4.0 in school or fall under the same umbrella. And if you're a Gen Z college or high school student, all three of those things add value to your life. And so they just that promotional video of our Kadama app tied in with all of the rest of our life hack videos. And so it was so perfectly designed.
I really want people to see your website, because it was like, um, I don't know if random is the right word. It's like the elevation of randomness. Like, it was like not random, but it's more of like, I feel like it's all the same thing that Gen Z people would have won in one place,
Mhm.
but it's also kind of like not overly promotional like you said. Like, it's like there's still a theme, which is your product obviously, but it's like very likable. Then when you go on like so many like educational formats, like, okay, it looks like a SaaS tool,
Yeah.
immediately need to put in your credit card information before moving on to the second page, or they gave you a free PDF which nobody
Mhm.
actually look at.
Yeah.
I'm
Exactly.
sorry, I feel like the SaaS industry should take like a masterclass from you on like how to promote a like product in general. So also, hi Daniel. We're gonna address your question in a little bit. So I want to talk about, like, for some of our listeners, now I'm gonna actually like ask question that from the listener. I feel like a lot of the listeners who are listening, they have a SaaS company or they have a VC firm. So how would you market these kind of things on social media? Because they're like, okay, I'm sorry to say this, but they're like the most boring sector in the stat. Like, well, who wants to know, like, the open source or closed source, like, data warehouse, or I'm sorry, like, I am not technical, but like most people don't want to scroll on TikTok and then see a video about like a specific tech sector, or even when they're scrolling on this, like, I think people would sit down and watch like a 40 minutes video on like how to do XYZ in the tech domain. But it's like less likely when people want to watch anything entertaining in the sector. But I feel like you sell people when you're entertaining them, or like when they're lower their barrier to think of buy or not buy. They want to be like sold but also like they want to feel like they're buying because they want to. So basically, I feel like they're not on the mindset of like buying things on TikTok. What would be your promotional strategy if you're like the CMO of a SaaS company? Maybe we start with SaaS, then we migrate into VCs.
So, well, I'm a tech founder and I come from a technical world, and I honestly love all type of cool technologies, and so I'm passionate about everything. But I agree that um, it's way more challenging to promote a B2B company versus a B2C company on socials. However, specifically TikTok for now, we are in a world where almost everybody's on TikTok. Professionals are on it,
Mhm,
non-professionals, and so maybe 2 years ago I would have said, okay, well, let's just focus on LinkedIn, maybe Facebook and Instagram, and use uh, their tools to hone in on those markets. But
mhm,
honestly, now on every most platforms, you will be able to reach that audience. So the big problem now is, okay, well, we can get the audience here, but how do we do it? You're
mhm,
gonna be you're gonna need to be very creative. So maybe a tool is boring. So your focus is not gonna be on promoting that specific tool. You're gonna have to think 2 steps higher, maybe 1 or 2, 3 steps higher. And also, it's similar to other companies as well, by the way. When you look at Uber, they're not really showing you their app. What are they showing you? They're showing you experiences. They're showing you happy. They're like, okay, we're taking you from this
mhm,
spot to an experience. We're taking
mhm,
you from here to the airport, right? So they're selling you on the outcome, not on the product. And a lot of big companies are like that too. Airbnb, they're not showing you an app. They're showing you the house, you with your fiance, you with your children that you love in a cabin in the woods. And that's how they're selling you on their brand. And that's exactly how you would approach it with a SaaS product. Well, what's the outcome? So, and it's hard for me to be very specific here because I don't have the exact company, but just an example. If you're trying to target professionals, you can actually take your tool or whatever it is and maybe go and get cool CEOs, let's say. And this is just very high level general, but let's say you go get Tim Cook or uh, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos to use your tool and be like, wow, this is so cool. And so, why are people going to watch that video? They're going to watch it because they're trying to see Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk's or any of these cool CEOs reaction to whatever that tool that is. And implicitly, right, it's promoting it. Like indirectly, it's promoting it. And you can actually, this high level concept I described here, take this, find other types of ways of achieving the same result and going with that strategy. So you're not going and promoting your product directly, but you're finding an experience, an end result. Maybe you're using celebrities, maybe you're gamifying it, maybe you're just showing whatever outcome it is and then using that to indirectly promote your product. That works really well. And I've seen a lot of other companies do that as well. And I think that's how I would go if I'm promoting a company that's a services company where it doesn't enhance, but you can turn it cool by creating a campaign or branding message or theme around it that can appeal to a larger audience. And then from there, once you have secured that audience, you can throw in those more direct videos that promote your product. But you have to start like that because it's all about capturing as wide of a pool of people as possible, attaining them, and then promoting. And that's how I would go about it at least.
mm. I want to learn more about like since I feel like you have a lot of experience with like attracting a huge amount of audience like in the broader level. How do you kind of like you mentioned like attaining some of the audience? Because I think like when I think about maybe B2B is different, but like I think when you're thinking about B2B like a SaaS company, they're
Mhm.
selling to this other SaaS company basically. And how do you target their CMO, like, or target, like, I don't know, the CTO, I guess. Obviously, right now, people are doing a lot of events. Like, you could go to hackathon, you could go like other tech conferences, or like you could throw dinners in like different industry. Basically, a lot of it are like direct sales to motion, like directly sell to a certain person, certain people. But you see lots of the people who go after TikTok or to go after these generalized space What's your thought behind like should people go after like a general audience and then dumb it down to like not dumb it down, like niche it down to like a specific group of audience and attain them, or do you see it just like the going direct should be working better as like they're selling to the five people that will buy that product
There's
from
no
a
right or
Gen Z
wrong answer.
perspective?
So there's really no right or wrong answer. And I'm at the end of the day, I'm sharing what I've seen work best or what I've done, but that does not discredit any of the other mechanisms.
Mhm,
I believe it really comes down to evaluating a product, evaluating the potential it has, and from there, choosing the options that work best for it. Some companies will naturally be better doing direct. Some companies may not even be possible to achieve a million followers, and that's just the truth. Like for example, it's going to be very hard for some sort of voice over IP company to go incredibly viral, right?
mhm,
Whereas like something like a fun learning app or a fun cooking app. And so I would look at your product first and I would sit down and think, how many different niches can we take this product and build content around in? For example, let's say you're building something with phones. What are bigger niches within this phone niche that we can start creating content around that down the line we can indirectly promote our product, or maybe even in these videos we can
mhm.
somehow tie in our product. Evaluate all that, look at other brands similar to you, see what they're doing, and then from there you can determine your sizable market. Basically, like if
Mhm.
you're seeing other brands in the same space all around the 10,000 follower cap, then well, at least you can achieve that. And don't that being said, don't also limit your success or cap what you believe you can achieve based on what other people are doing, because what we did is we broke the expectations of the education industry. All these companies had 30,000 followers, 40 maximum, and we were like, no, we're going to be 2 million. So don't let that define what you're going to do, but learn from that. And then based on that, you can determine whether or not social media is going to be a good tool for you or not. Because if it's not, you can always default back to organic, creative, and unique strategies in these one-on-one sales pitches that you could do at an event or maybe on LinkedIn or cold email, right? There's other ways you could be creative and apply the same high-level thinking and strategy that I said in social media, but translate that into the more traditional ways. And so don't force it if you think it's not possible, but still evaluate it and try to think outside of the box. And I think that's like as specific as I can get, because it's hard for me to give advice in a B2B world, especially when I come from B2C, when I don't really know the product. Because with SaaS, as you already know, every single company is drastically different and it's so hard to just generalize. Be like, oh, this is what you got to do.
For sure. I want to talk about like building a team.
Yeah.
So I think you are very well, from what I'm seeing, I feel like you're very successful at building your team, which means like you can delegate tasks that doesn't need it to be done just by yourself, right? And from I also feel like you seems like a very creative person. So I always find delegation is like really hard because when you're thinking about, oh, I could be doing X, Y, and Z, but when you're delegating to a certain members, like they're not achieving the same level of diligenceness as yourself because maybe you have a lot more context on like a certain business situation, all that kind of stuff. How do you formulate a team? Because I think at the beginning you talk about not at the beginning of this show, but like in some other podcasts you were talking about at the very beginning, you guys were very young. You have 30K to spend on like finding a team oversee to build a product, but month goes by and then like no one's building anything. It's super slow and all that kind of stuff. To now, obviously, you're successfully leading a global team. What's the thought process behind which part should be outsourced immediately and then which part you should work on more to achieve a certain level of success before handing it to other people?
Anything that you can, I would believe anything that doesn't necessarily deal with creativity or deal directly with customers or any future vision can immediately be off source to somebody to handle, especially if it's taking up time, because time is worth money. Where I invest my time as a CEO even like running multiple businesses, right? Time is very valuable for me. And so if there's something that's taking up 1 or 2 hours a day and it doesn't require any of that creativity or any of that, impactful decision making, gotta go. And so those ones get them away as fast as possible. For everything else that does require vision, planning, creativity, speaking to customers, like head of product, head of marketing, chief operating officer, those ones, the way I hire them or the people I look for is very unique, as in, at least in my situation, and I feel like when I speak to other founders, they say the same thing. It's a mix of organic, right timing, and also really taking your time with it and having stars align. And what I mean, and this sounds like very fairy tale, but what I mean by that is don't go and just hire any random person to run your marketing, because sure, you can check off the box that you hired somebody fast, but if this person lacks the culture of the company you're trying to build, lacks the passion, lacks the ability to cooperate and think on the same wavelength as you, there's literally no point. You wasted all that recruiting money and then all that time onboarding just for nothing. And so until that, you're doing it on your own. You were working 80 hours a week until you hire those people. But when you look for those people, you want somebody that loves what you're doing, right? Even if they don't have the actual expertise. So it's almost impossible to find somebody who has the passion, who loves what you're doing, has the expertise you need, all in that time frame of building a startup, right? And so I actually will put passion and drive and ability obviously to work well together above somebody who comes in with the skill sets that I need, because I believe that somebody who is passionate at a lower skill level than somebody who isn't as passionate at a much higher skill level, right? If you compare the two, I believe this person will overachieve the first person, right? And so every single one of my co-founders, we all started off with no knowledge in finance, operations, marketing, and engineering. We joined together and we're like, okay, we're all equally passionate about this. We're going to figure it out together. And we kept failing and failing and failing. But every time we would fail, we'd write it down, we'd learn from it and attempt it again. Write it down, learn from it and attempt it again. That process of learning from our mistakes. And we got to a point where we stopped making those mistakes and we started seeing that success. And so finding those kind of people is essential for me when I'm assigning key leadership positions. But when I'm trying to hire for those basic tasks that don't require, the product market fit, etc., you hire those fast. You can hire those and fire fast.
Mm, I feel like you should be a motivational speaker, but I wonder, how do you think about, um, I guess, like, I think, like, I don't know how comfortable you are to share the vision of your company, also, like, your ambition for, like, future projects. And I wonder, what do you think would be, like, the key differentiations between, like, a Gen Z CEO versus, like, the older people, from thinking process wise? Because I feel like I see more and more people don't want to achieve, like, the, call it, like, Elon Musk level of success. Like, a lot of people are chasing more of, like, a happier life, and then, like, maybe, like, working on your own things. And I also feel like I see another, like, Gen Z, like, trends is, like, kind of like people were more leaning towards, like, work life balance. Like, they don't want to quit. Like, I feel like less people among the, like, I feel like millennial people are more towards, like, oh, let's, like, start a company immediately. And then for the Gen Z people, I feel like people having the vibe of, like, going back to corporate and let's see, maybe, like, start a side hustle and then, like, go walk the dogs whenever you want to, kind of vibe. What's your thought process on, like, building a work culture and that kind of attract the Gen Z audience, since I feel like you're the expert of attracting Gen Z people to work together?
Biggest thing for Gen Z is purpose. If they're in it and they find purpose, then they're going to be motivated. Purpose, as in what they're working on a big scale, is making an impact. And obviously, from their perspective, what they're doing is making an impact. because and I feel like it's directly correlated with social media and access to things over the internet in seconds. Things are so attainable fast for this generation, and they grew up like that. They never, for a lot of things that we worked. Well, I guess technically I'm in that Gen Z age group, so I'm not. But for, let's say, people who are 10 years older than me or more, to make a phone call, to send an email or something like that, there was way more steps involved to do anything. And so hard work was kind of part of the big picture. And so naturally for us, because things, we have them in the palm of our hands, we kind of get lazy a little bit. And so that being said, we have, maybe a smaller attention span. And that's why TikTok is doing so well, 5-second videos, 10-second videos, and you can scroll so fast. And so that being said, if they don't really feel motivated or inspired by it or feel like this is the thing for them, it's going to hard to retain a Gen Z employee, for example. And so I was actually speaking to my friend yesterday about building a team of interns, and he was like, as long as you make them come in, add value, figure out what they like, what makes them passionate, and hire them for that, and make them feel like they're attaining whatever they're trying to achieve, and make them feel like they're achieving something and it's making an impact, then you're going to secure them. Because if you don't do that, then after maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, they're just going to lose passion and then just want to quit. And so that being said, in this kind of era, that's very important. And so and again, maybe you should remind me of the question, because I think I forgot the question. But is it more about how do you build companies with Gen Z, or how Gen Z? Can you just rephrase that question?
I think you answer a lot of it,
Okay.
which is like how do you build a successful culture to attract
Oh
like the
yeah,
best
yeah.
Gen
Then
Z
I answered it.
talent and then retain them obviously. But also like I feel like a lot of it building company is also about priority. So obviously for you, I feel like having millions of views doesn't just mean having a millions of views, but also like it translate into the download number of your apps. Um, how do you quickly identify a task that's the most important as a CEO?
Depending on what stage you are in a business, your priorities should be very clear. My priorities 6 months ago versus now are very different. And so, depending on, are you talking more about my tutoring company or my social media business?
Um, both. This will be the
So,
last real question, and then we'll jump into a 1 minute fire round.
So for tutoring with Kadama right now, the highest priority is something to do with retention or growth. So that's our big goal. How do we get people to retain more? How do we get people to share the app? And so anytime we have something that gets brought up, is it in line with this? Yes or no? Yes, we'll work on it. No, we're going to push it out and think about it later. So it's also a balance of future planning and short term. You don't want to neglect one, but you also don't want to focus too much on a stage if it's not the right time. And so we're always building on things for the future, like AI and stuff of that nature. But we're also still very aware and like 99.9% focused on what's going on in the moment. And then in social media, it's the other way around. Right now, for me, it's, well, okay, we've achieved this retention, we've achieved this virality. What can we create right now that can help us establish better relationships with brands and build a platform that makes brands feel comfortable and allow us to scale the monetization? So if I have a new content idea that is just going to get us views, but maybe will not build any emotional relationship or will not cause brands to resonate with us, then I'm gonna be like, it's not worth it, because we already get views. We can give views anytime we want. That's not the focus no longer. Our focus is quality content that brands can resonate with. And so we set those goals. I like to, there's micro goals and macro goals, but we like to have regular sync ups once a month for some type of goals, once every 6 months for other type of goals, once a week for other type of goals, and then make sure we're meeting them and adjusting them in real time based on how priorities and how things are actually changing.
Mm. I like that. I like that. Like, you said different stage of goals and through like different time period. I don't know if you have a minute to address Daniel's question or like from the audience. So basically he was asking where does where do you see Swift and iOS dev going this and next year?
She said, where does he see iOS and Swift development going?
Yeah.
So I wonder if
It's
he's
such
asking
a
this.
general thing. I'm
It
sorry.
is. It's a
So
general
general.
question. I'm trying to figure out if he means it from like a technology perspective or adoption perspective. Maybe let me just answer adoption for now, just because I feel like more people would want to know that answer. I think a lot of people, or maybe from okay, I'm gonna answer it like this, and I hope it's correct. How startups are using iOS and Swift when building their product. I believe back in the day, more people were building using the native tools like iOS, Swift. So Swift for iOS, and then maybe Java for Android. But now we're in a world where, as you mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast, getting your product out fast is very essential, and more people are actually deferring to languages that do two birds in one stone. And so there's a few different languages out there where you, in one coding language, you can ship out an app to all platforms, and people are actually defaulting to that because it takes half the time. They can iterate fast, and maybe if things are going really well, they'll go and invest that time to rebuild the app in the native language to get those native features. But generally, I believe, based on, like, if your app doesn't require some crazy OS level things, like a video game where you need to like leverage every single like one of those lower level APIs for that specific technology or platform, like you're building an app like, let's say, Uber or a tutoring marketplace like us, I would say it's best to use one of those like languages where you can just ship it out on two platforms at once, because you save so much time and money doing that. And I hope that's like the direction he wanted to hear. But if he follows up and says he wants us to focus on a different angle of this question, I'm more than happy to answer that.
Awesome. I think okay, so he did say I mean it in terms of hiring iOS developers,
Okay.
but I'm I don't want to like keep you for longer since like
Yeah.
I already did it for 60 minutes. We could end with like a quick 1 minute fire round maybe, and then like we can address like next time when we do a second round of the pod. But
Uh-huh.
okay, so number one question: what's your favorite book?
There's a few. It's tough. I like the one about the journey, the CEO of Nike.
Yeah, the Shoe Dog one.
Yeah.
I love that book. Who made the biggest impact in your career?
Oh, this is so hard. I don't. There's no name I can say. There's a lot of people I'd want to give thanks to. I don't want to just like sing. I don't want to. Yeah. There's a lot.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Say that one more time.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Elon Musk.
Where can we find you outside of work?
Like, what do I do for fun?
Uh, yeah,
Uh, Playing tennis, pickleball, golf, outside in the city, snowboarding.
amazing. I feel like pickleball came up a lot lately. It's a
Yeah.
trend. But well, I mean, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Do you want to address this like he meant it in terms of hiring iOS developers? I feel bad whenever audience asks a question, I try to address them, but like
Yeah. What the problem is, I still don't fully understand. Is he asking like how to hire an iOS engineer? And
I
like,
don't I don't know.
how about he can directly message me on my Instagram or something, and
Okay.
I can directly
Yeah.
one-to-one answer it.
Yes, please. Okay, thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate I really appreciate that you joined us, and thank you so much. Oh, also,
Yeah.
thank you, Amin, for obviously giving us a master class on growing a social media and a company brand.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let me quickly end stream.